shops of Paris began to show a new silhouette with a thicker waist, flatter bust, and narrower hips. By the end of the decade, most fashionable skirts cleared the floor and approached the ankles. The overall silhouette narrowed and straightened, beginning a trend that would continue into the years leading up to the Great War. Women spent a great deal of money on their clothes. An early 1910 survey of wealthy high school students at a girls' school in New York found that each spent an average of $556, a total of $13,006 today, annually for clothing. Tailored clothes were worn for outdoor activities and traveling by most women. A shirt that was tailored like a man's shirt with a high collar was adopted for informal day wear and became the uniform for working women. Wool or tweed suit clothing called tailor-mades featured ankle-length skirts with matching jackets. Ladies of fashion wore them with fox furs and huge hats. Two new styles of hats that became popular at the turn of the century were automobile bonnets for riding and sailing hats worn for tennis matches, bicycling, and for croquet. An ideal 18-inch waist. The modern corset, which shapes the body, evolves during the 14th and 15th century, and while this is far from the time of equality between the sexes, they do share similar vanities. The corset is worn by both men and women. The shape of corsets change continuously with the changing ideal of what the body's silhouette should look like. Sometimes women wear corsets which accentuate or raise the waist. Sometimes corsets diminish or emphasize the hips. In the 16th century, the corset stiffened with stays of metal, wood, or whalebone. Short-waisted in the 17th century, corsets become longer, more pointed, and cone-shaped in the 18th century. The 19th century vogue for Scarlett O'Hare-like waist means that women have trouble breathing as corsets are more tightly laced. In fact, corsets are so tightly laced by the mid-1800s that they restrict breathing, cause ribs to overlap, and are a general pain in whatever that they happen to be constricting, and no matter how uncomfortable, women aren't willing to throw them out until styles change.
Happy feet, I've got those happy feet. Keep them all down me, and they begin to.
Flapper in the 1920s was a term applied to a new breed of young Western women who wore short skirts, bobbed their hair, listened to jazz, and flaunted their disdain for what they considered acceptable behavior. Flappers were seen as brash for wearing excessive makeup, drinking, smoking, driving automobiles, and otherwise flaunting social norms.
Get into my shoes, because my shoes refuse to ever go weary. I keep cheerful on the nipple of music sweet, 'cause I've got happy
zoot suits. These suits had baggy pants with tight cuffs and oversized jackets, worn with wide-brimmed hats and long chains hanging down from the belt. They were popular with teenagers who called themselves hepcats. In 1942, they sparked protests in Los Angeles, New York, a lot closer to home wherever parents resided. The fad doesn't die out until the U.S. government steps in and bans the suits under wartime fabric conservation standards. What is it about these suits that cause riots? Well, it's wartime. The men who have stayed home, haven't yet enlisted, are the ones who don the zoot suits. Tea gowns. They were first introduced in the late 1800s. They are the first at-home fashions, worn to receive guests at home at tea time. They are simple, high-waisted, long-sleeve dresses that can be comfortably worn with corsets unlaced or even removed. When Americans invent the cocktail party in the 1920s, the dematured tea gown is replaced by the racier cocktail dress, a black, knee-length, sleeveless sheath. In the 1920s, cigarettes became the latest accessory. Everybody smokes. Women use long, thin cigarette holders, and vanity tables are built with a special place to hold them. As early as 1890, it was predicted that cosmetics were not going to be a mere remedy for age or plainness, but that all the ladies and girls would come to love them. In 1915, lipstick sold in cylindrical metal containers in America for the first time. On the well-equipped turn of the century dressing table, one might find a little purple book with powdered dried leaves for a touch of cheek color, rice powder for pale base, perhaps some anti-chapped cream for the hands. But the flappers throw caution to the wind. She paints her lips very melon red, rouges her cheeks and earlobes, and enlarges her eyes with kohl. Skirts start out in the early 1920s at mid-calf. By 1925, they skim the knee. And by 1926, they are coming the shortest ever, coming right to the knee. By 1929, skirts come crashing back down to the mid-calf. During the Depression, life is going to the dogs, and everyone is going to the movies. In real life, fashion comes crashing down just like the stock market. Oh, there are some inventive Idaho potato stamped sack dresses and curtain cut on the bias gowns, but for the most part, even the rich think it is déclassé to be overly concerned with the changing fashions. Cotton is used for evening dress, and haute couture loses its haute. During World War I, wearing pajamas to bed rapidly rivals, if not overtakes, the night dress. And just like the waistless flapper dress, they emphasize a boyish figure. In the 30s, there are 3 types of pajamas: for sleeping in, for informal dinner dress, and for resort wear. Made of chant or crepe de chine, widely flared trousers with a loose short-cut coats are seen at the best seaside hotels. Coco Chanel was one of the most popular fashion designers in the 19th century. Chanel's design solutions are born of practicality. When she borrows her beau's tweed jacket on a fishing trip, the blazer is born. When the insurance on her real jewels become too costly, she creates custom jewelry. And history has it, when one of her legion of lovers is lost at sea, she vows to put the nation in mourning and invents the little black dress. In fact, from gaming Soho, street urchins in dark coal eye makeup and little boxy black dresses, to demean Connecticut's martins in Shetland sweaters and pearls, Chanel had a hand in one of today's most current fashions. In 1932, the Paris chief of police is outraged to see Madeleine Deretch walking along the scene clad in man's jacket and pants. But it is really the shortage of stockings during World War II that forces ladies to turn to trousers to hide their stockingless legs. Pants are also more practical for working in the assembly lines. Pencil-thin eyebrows and enormous saucer eyes help give flapper Clara Bow a fresh look that makes her everyone's favorite girl in the 1920s. With overpowering arched eyebrows heavily penciled in and steely-eyed look, Joan Crawford is the quintessential 40s career woman. Elizabeth Taylor's fabled violet eyes receive even more notoriety when she bats them at her co-star Richard Burton as she plays Cleopatra. The heaviest thing about 60 model Twiggy are the triple row of false eyelashes that complete her waft-like appearance. When trend-setting fashion designer Coco Chanel is pictured in the press with tan skin, black becomes beautiful. This is the first time in history that being tan is associated with leisure, sports, and the upper class, and not with laborers who have worked in the field. Just as the World War I metal drives finally freed women from the corsets that had afflicted them for 400 years, strictures and shortages during World War II also made their impact on fashion. The English Board of Trade restricts the amount of fabric manufacturers can use. This limits firms at creating at most 50 styles a year and issues consumers coupons. 40 per person per year is the maximum clothing allowance. One suit alone takes up 18 coupons. The U.S. government decrees that to conserve fabric, men's suits must be manufactured without cuffs, pleats, or patched pockets. Women's dresses have to be short with hems only 2 inches deep, and ruffles are forbidden for the duration of the war. The beret emerges as the favorite wartime hat thanks to shortages of elastic. The wedgie shoe comes into fashion since wooden platform soles help to conserve leather. The shoulder bag is invented so women have more room to store bandages, medicine, and cotton swabs for wartime emergencies. The Eisenhower jacket, waist-length belted with a turned-down collar, named for the popular general, takes center stage. The windbreaker, a waist-length jacket with fitted waistline made from wool or nylon and adopted from the British Royal Air Force jacket of the 40s, becomes popular.
This episode was sponsored by McDonald's, making sure you get enough to eat.